50 years, and the park's too nice. And then, once we have that analysis, potentially put out an RFP to see if we can get private participation. If that doesn't work, then go forward with the plan. But I think we need to, by the end of this year, come up with some sort of idea of how we're going to, we can't do what's happened for 50 years, I don't think. We've got to come up with a plan to take it forward.
So we'll do that, and maybe somebody from the Village of Rybrook wants to, whether it's Chris or somebody from your staff as well.
Terrific.
And of course,
if the bonding authority to the city and to the town of Rye, they let's say did a ban for 5-year, 2-year, does the debt fall into the operating budget of the Rye Town Park Commission?
Yes. Eventually, yeah, sure.
Because it's an account.
That's a great question. When we did it this year, I wasn't sure how it was going to work, but basically the debt's on the books of Rye Town right now, Joe.
Well, right, but
we can apply it
gets funded by
through the operating.
The two municipalities, right.
But it should be shown in the operating budget, right? Because it's for we're borrowing. You guys borrowed. It's for the use for the Rye Town Park,
Actually,
but our budget should reflect that somehow.
Capital sharing is different than the
debt service.
Both formulas are reflected in the financials of Rye Town Park. If you look at the audited statements and you drop down to the bottom, you'll see there's a component that shows the shared operating losses, and there's a component that would show the shared capital expenses. And you'll see that very clearly, for example, for 2010, because we had the roof project, which was a capital project, and we had operating losses as well. So when the audit report comes out for 2010, I think you'll see clearly it is reflected there.
But debt service is different for, obviously for
But for 2011, you're not going to see any debt service on the Rye Town Park books. It's going to be absorbed. It's going to be absorbed in the town.
Right.
That's not necessarily good for the town either, right?
No, the
it's
town.
a small amount, but long term.
Look, if we're talking $14 million in expenditures, the town's got to finance $7 million, or probably $8 million, right?
Somewhere around $8
million over however many, and that's before the town does any of its other needs.
That brings you back to the point. The mayor runs a village on $6 million in debt. You're going to run a park on $14 million worth of debt?
Well, we'll have to get that RFP out there, and
I think that's a
good.
Just the last recommendation was just around personnel. It's a huge cost of almost $750,000 to really effectively manage a 3-month park. We've got to find ways to reduce that. So, Joe, those are the headlines of what you and I had recommended. Commissioner Sackett?
Yeah, that says it all. As Denzel Washington said in that submarine movie, I concur, Captain. So that's basically all I have to say.
Can I call you Denzel from now on, Commissioner?
Sure,
No, it was Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman.
But I think that the Cost Containment Committee, I think, is a nice follow-on to that last recommendation.
Right.
In fact, you, Mayor French, and Mayor Pillow were on the budget. Do you want to be on the cost containment? I think Paul has offered her services to work on sitting down with the staff and really going through the cost. I'd like that to take place for the next budget. I think we went for, the number of cashiers went from 16 to 22 last year, Terry, and that's the numbers that Bishop gave me. I can go through them, but they increased last year from the previous year, the number of cashiers.
because you increased the hours of the park.
Right. So therefore,
I need more stuff.
right. So therefore, that's what I want to do. So I want to have the Cost Containment Committee go through with staff and see where there are opportunities for cost savings, if any.
Yep.
But I think there's more than that, and something I know that I've raised, and I think you've heard it before for the last few years, which is we can contain costs and look at personnel and et cetera, but to make sure whatever services can be shared. I've always said that the city of Rye, and I don't know about the operation, Commissioner French or Mayor French, but there are many, I would assume, personnel and members of your staff who are in fact running the beach club, right? And which is a comparable seasonal business as well. And I'm certainly not speaking as far as your staff, but there can be a way of shared services where in fact the personnel is shared in a way. in some fashion. We should be looking at that as well.
I-
I'm not saying it may be doable, but it's something that has to be examined.
I think that anything that reduce cost and
Right.
expense, and so as part of the cost containment committee, if there's a way to leverage, your existing Rye City personnel to do it at a reduced cost, then absolutely. I mean, anything that can reduce costs, I'm certainly all in favor of.
Yeah, our city manager, Scott Pickett, based on, I think, the vote we took last, was it November or so? He's putting
Right.
together some recommendations, probably not for this season, but as we head towards next season. I mean, simple things, we want to get more residents into the park. Why don't we run our camps during the weekday at the park and have that as the destination for the kids to go to? They get the beach facilities, they can use the park rather than run it at our recreation center right now.
Is that where you do it,
We
right?
do it, yeah, and
I
so...
mean, we run our Rybrook Day Camp at Buffett Park.
Right, so there's simple things that we can do to get more residents in the park, more people using it, use existing staff. So he's putting together a list of
Great,
recommendations.
thank you.
Great, perfect. Good, okay. Well, the budget, did anybody have any questions about the budget? We won't approve it tonight, but we certainly can discuss it.
I think Councilman Sack had mentioned it, we had record revenues. I don't see how we can do that again.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little aggressive on the revenue side. Joe?
Yes. Again, yes.
I concur.
I concur.
All right, let me try to get a little bit more out of you, like 10% maybe? It's 10? Yeah.
I agree with that, too.
Even more than 10%.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. I think Bishop, you estimated 2%. Yeah, maybe 10 or 15%, or...
Give me a number, I'll make the adjustment.
Well, but you guys should have some input into it as well, because staff was telling us all year long that the reason why we had such high numbers was because of the weather. So you are in probably a pretty good position to put a price tag on what that good weather was worth.
Yeah, I think, well, I'm happy to sit down with Mr. Nowotnik. We'll come up with a number that's more conservative. Now, obviously, let's, for argument's sake, if we take it down 10%, that's $900,000 which I think is probably, obviously this is a weather-related business, but if I look back on 08, 868, 2009, 928, this year 985, you're probably looking, on that experience, in the 920 range. So I'll work with Mr. Nowotnik to come up with that. But currently we have, and I know the staff has already taken a crack at it, because after we spoke today, I went through the numbers with Mr. Nowotnik. Has already taken a crack at reducing so we're at 978 in expenses. I think it's relatively easy to take the revenues down to 920. I think, we may end up voting for a budget that may be starting off in the red, but the cost containment, I don't want to anticipate the decisions in the cost containment committee, but we've got to get that 978 down to 900, 920. So we've got to find somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 in cost savings to balance the budget. And then, just to be clear, that doesn't begin to pay for then the capital.
Right, correct. Yep, gotcha.
I had some specific that
Yep.
I raised at the last, which we can go through.
Yep.
Which is, when I look at the professional fees, and I see that there is, if you look at the December audited and the 2008 audited, the December 2009 audited, we're talking about a projected close to 25 to 30% increase in those line items. And I know the explanation.
Could you just walk me through which one?
Okay, I'm on page 2. The professional fees, the administration fees.
So
We projected at 50,000 for the
right,
2011.
Yeah.
But if you look at the performance over December 2007, 8, 9, it's a very high increase, on a percentage basis. And these are the issues. I'm not just looking at this here, but I'm trying to trend it. So why should there be, if you look at 2008 audited, and
I think
that's a staggering increase.
There's one item in there that I think you're not comparing to. Historically, the fee that comes out of the secretary's office was put into payroll under the director's line. I think we've made an effort in the last 2 years to put Bishop's allocation under the professional fees. So there's probably a $5,000 to $7,000 difference, apples to apples.
And isn't the auditing fee going up? What did the auditor charge?
It went up a couple grand. My
Didn't-
fees
I thought it went
for
up.
5 years.
No, I know there's been no change to your fee or Mr. Noto's fee. I know Mr. Nowotnik's
Well,
fee's
that's the
going
other
up.
thing. Historically, we've never really.
But I thought the audited
Well,
fees,
If
audit
that's the
fees.
case, Sam,
Yeah.
then it should have come out of basically salaries, directors, or the like. But if I look back in 2008, 2009, I don't see a reduction there. And these are just questions that I don't understand. I don't, that's
It's a
all I'm
legitimate
looking for.
question, and the bottom line is, there's a $15,000 difference between the auditors.
Where'd it
numbers
come
a
from?
couple of years
Yeah.
ago.
But that's all I'm, until I understand from
Yeah,
that.
well, Mayor Feinstein, because, as you know, I thought you were concerned about the 35,550 to 50,000.
No, I was,
right, so
I think, we
No,
talked
no,
briefly,
I understand.
the entire
Yeah,
line
so
item.
that
No,
was-
'cause I'm
right.
just not looking at from last year, I'm looking at, and I
Yeah.
think it's wonderful
Right,
that
so-
we see the results from 2007 on and the actual audited numbers. I think that we had asked for that. It's very, very helpful, because you can see the trend, say, how are we containing these costs?
Right.
And if so, and if not, why not? The other thing is just things that clear, and I agree with what the other commissioner says about revenues and expenses. I see that under the medical insurance, the projection is the fact that we're going to have a 15,000 medical insurance. Well, I look at, it's great, because it's a reduction of, significant reduction, 50% reduction, not quite 50% reduction, a substantial 20 to 30% reduction over prior years. And my only question is that realistic? What is the basis of that?
I'm not sure, maybe I sent you an email. Basically, my understanding is that we reduced one full-time Rye-Town employee who allocates a portion of his time to Rye-Town Park. And so the reduction is basically his medical
That's all,
expenses.
that's
Yeah,
great.
the
And then
answer.
also, what we should, once again, the reduced filings, the unemployment insurance, we've already discussed
Yeah.
that this evening.
Yeah.
And of course, I think the other, I'm just going back to my questions from,
Sure.
was the
Yeah.
capital, the capital expense fund, because that's always been.
Well, this is the
We've really
thing.
touched on that, and I think that is essential going forward.
Now, again, and this is the balance we've been trying to do, accommodate more green in the park, fewer parking places, an economic balance, and that's why I think it was helpful to take that time to talk about the capital expenditures, because we're fighting very hard, all of us here, to break even on an operating basis. That still doesn't pay anywhere near the $14 million in capital expense. So like every municipality or every municipal-like entity in New York State and across the nation, we're struggling to, make ends meet, one, and two, provide a good service to our constituents. And then three, as Commissioner Salnitro pointed out, we're really making up for 50 years of neglect in terms of capital expenditure.
That's why I think we're really looking at an automated park. And I hate the fact that machines are taking over for human beings, but the reality is, at the end of the day, you may get, what is it, spillage or breakage or whatever, and better record keeping. And it's a sign of the times that automation is, an integral part of our society, and it's more accurate. And I think the record keeping is really the most important aspect of it.
Can I take over for the commission?
You know what? I like that idea.
Well, Mayor Feinstein, that's a wonderful segue. Oh,
Can I get a
yes, sir.
follow-up?
I knew for the.
That's a wonderful
I
segue.
just want to follow up real quick on two things that Mayor Feinstein did say. The two lines that she was referencing, one would be the professional fees line under administration. If indeed there are different components that now make up that line, we should know what that breakdown is.
Well, what we'll do is we'll
So-
give you a 4-year historical now.
Okay, great. And then the same with the allocation. I mean, I think that even on the Rye City staff, when they took a look at this budget, they had questions about, what that allocation is for, the employees of the town of Rye
Sure.
that appear in the budget. So maybe we could
We'll
get a
break
better
that
sense
out.
of that.
Sure.
And so great, thank you.
Good.
Do you think it might be a good idea also, since we've tried to have no contribution or operating loss, and we haven't been successful. Do you think it's reasonable to maybe have a number for both Wright Town and Wright City's budgeting purposes instead of zero? And if it's zero, it's great, and if it's not, you have some accounting for it? No, it maybe goes with what Commissioner Sack was saying. If we reduce the anticipated revenue, then the expenses got to give. If there's no room for expenses, then if we reduce the revenue for the beach collection and for parking collection, then it should come. Maybe the easiest thing to do is to reduce that revenue and show it as an operating loss at the end of the year.
Or have it as contingency, right?
And then you can use it for that purpose.
Right.
That is your
For right-
contingency.
Right, but
That's
let's
what I'm getting at.
have a line item.
We don't have a contingency in this
Contingency
budget.
$100,000.
It's zero.
That would be estimated.
But then that would be, in effect, a budgeted expense, meaning a
Well,
contingency
you don't,
Sure.
you don't,
expense.
Yeah.
you don't,
Hopefully not.
Well,
you don't, exactly, you don't grow from it.
If I could, I think there's a effective, I think, Wright Town Park budget is much more akin to running a business. And so, in the municipality, you have much greater control over expenditures, maybe snow removal and that kind of thing, but you have a much greater visibility, certainly in the Wright Town and Rye we do. So, from the Rye Town perspective, that's a really Rye City issue. We're happy to incorporate a contingency, but that, as Mr. Nowotnik points out, would simply increase your expenditures. By definition, we are the contingency. I'm happy to budget either way. In our budget, I think we have $50,000.
Yes.
So we in our budget, we've budgeted for a $50,000 loss, based on the 3-year historical. So in terms of how Rye City wants to handle it, obviously I'll leave it up to you guys. But we budget for everything.
Well, the important thing is,
It's all right, Tom.
It's not reflected.
No, Wright Town.
Oh, Wright Town overall.
I'm saying sorry.
Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
So, Commissioner Sanitro, I think that's really how Rye City wants to budget the Wright Town Park vagaries, right? Because it's weather related. We simply put a $50,000 loss in for this year. We budgeted $3.6 million in expenditures, and we have a run rate of 3.2, 3.3. I don't want to overspend my budget. And in our Rye Town budget, we use the reserve balance, and so we project a usage of reserve that is higher than what we anticipate.
Which is 50,000.
No, well, yeah, 50,000. No, $50,000 is contributed by $3.6 million in expenditures. So if we have zero budget, I'd have $3.5 million in expenditures. You follow me?
Is Wright Town budgeting a loss for 2011 budget?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yes, $50,000.
The critical thing is, I have to give the mayor on Labor Day a number that he can bring back to his board.
That's right.
And this year, we failed to give him a number
Right.
that made sense, and that's not going to happen this year.
Good.
That I can guarantee you.
We're $30 million. We budget $300,000 in contingency. We
Right.
track the budget.
Right.
If the city manager wants to tap into contingency, he's got to come before the board, and we vote to say, yes, okay, you can now use that. Same thing. So let's budget for $900,000 in revenue,
Right.
$1 million in expenses, but $100,000 of that is contingency, 10%. And so if we're going to tap into the contingency, you've got to come before us and say, look, I'm running over on these expenses.
Which is the
Well,
same
what happens if
thing.
you're running? What happens if your expenses are running the same, but your revenue comes short? How do you handle that one then?
Well, I don't want to tell Rice City how Rice
No,
City.
no,
We're running short of time,
Okay.
so let's.
Yeah,
So right, I mean,
I would like to cut.
let's talk about our automated revenue collection. Use that segue.
Can I just say one thing about the budget before you go to that?
One thing, and you got 30 seconds.
Positive,
I'm
right?
30 seconds, Mr. Lawyer.
Yes. We at the park are very strongly believing that we can do a better job of bringing up the permit income. The permit income, if you look, has dropped significantly from back if you look back at
Yep.
from 86,000
Yep.
down to projected 60,000.
Right.
We feel we can turn that number around this year if by aggressively doing a mailing, which we're proposing to do, doing a mailing to all the residents of the communities. No mailing was done in the last 2 years.
When are we doing that mailing?
It's going to be happening in the beginning of April. And then
Okay,
we
so we're
feel
gonna
that this...
approve that mailing at the next board
It's good.
meeting?
Pardon?
Do you need,
We
No.
have the rates there.
It's part of our
Application.
And
Part of our-
it's-
You're on the hook, Bill.
So it's going to, we feel that it's going to bring in, I think it's almost conservative to be budgeting $62,000. I honestly think we can do much better than that, and our goal is to do better than that, and that'll do us two things. One, it'll increase the bottom line, but it'll also give us a cash flow early in the year so that we won't have to be borrowing money at high interest rates.
wonderful.
So
Well,
that's-
Mr. Lawyer, you've done that in front of the whole home community, so I'm very
Like a Mark Messier.
wonderful.
Example in your packet, that's
Yeah,
a good
okay.
example.
Good. Okay, can we move then to the, who's going to make a presentation? I know that people are working very hard on the, Christina? Thanks.
Hello. For the record, I think I have to state my name, Christina Beecher, Rice City resident. Thank you for allowing us to participate in the process of automation, and we're very encouraged by the Commissioner's support of this. This is something that we've been strongly in favor of from the beginning. And several people have mentioned tonight, not only does it reduce human error, operating efficiencies, opportunities for lower head costs, but there are also ways you can maximize revenues. There were days last summer when there was rain off and on, and perhaps they didn't call staff in. You could charge for parking year-round. There may be, with increased internet capabilities, new marketing opportunities that could increase the top line as well for the park. So the members of the Parking Task Force met, and we met with Paula Schaefer representing Rye Finance Committee. We also met a couple times with the staff. We met with Bishop, we met with Fred, Terry, and Bill Lawyer, so we appreciate their time. And we met with Commissioner Salinitro and Mayor Pilla. So the whole group met to discuss the 5 proposals. So the proposals that were received were from Amano McGann, Control Systems, Core Cashless, Precision Technology, and Bentech International. It was our unanimous consensus that the system proposed by Core Cashless, which was a pay-as-an-exit system, is the optimal system that would address the various needs of the park, which include alleviating neighborhood congestion, improved controls, and reporting. Their proposed system can accommodate the somewhat complex pricing scheme of the park due to differentiated rates, and it was the only proposal that included automation of beach admission, which is something we see as very feasible, 1 or 2 years out. We were also impressed by the basic capabilities of Core as a vendor, their client list, their expertise, their experience, and this commission heard from a representative of Core last month, and I think she represented the company fairly well. So this is something that we felt very encouraged by in terms of a system that was proposed. Depending on how, what kind of economic assumptions you look at in terms of a payback, we think you could have, a year to 2 years of a payback period. If the beach was fully automated, you could make an argument that it could pay for itself within a year. So we think it is a feasible system. Given the financial pressures of this park, it is something that is not unduly expensive. The 3 basic categories of proposals were a pay and display, a pay upon entrance, and a pay upon exit. The pay and display method, we felt, really, it's a very large physical space, the park. So enforcement, you would need enforcement staff, and they'd have a lot of ground to cover. You would also be reintroducing people back into the parking space, and that could present a safety hazard. They're coming with kids, they're coming with equipment, so we really didn't prefer that method. The pay upon entrance is really what you have right now. And we felt that that would not alleviate the street congestion aspect. And so pay as you exit basically is the only one that fit that criteria. And I think Christy went through from Core last month the basic setup. So I don't know, do the commissioners feel like they fully understand how?
I mean, mostly, I guess my question really is, if we have unanimous consent from your group, what's the next step? What do we do? How do we, do we get it? How do we get it
Well,
done?
we talked about that, Commissioner Salanitro and Mayor Pilla, and that, in terms of an RFP process, that's really your call. We talked about how timing-wise, it's probably tight to get it for the start of the season because, you want it to be as seamless as possible, but we would also recommend that you not wait too late. I don't think there's any reason why, as you move into August, September, which is much slower, that you can't really shoot for implementation then, and that gives you a few months over the summer to iron out some of the kinks. Look again at the traffic flows. Do you need 2 lanes out, or do you just need 1? Just give it one more look to make sure you're comfortable with the configuration.
Can you just walk through the system again?
Yeah.
You drive in, you have a gate, you get a ticket, the whole thing.
Right, okay. So you drive in, what we talked about last month was that the system that they had proposed did not indicate what time you entered, and so perhaps there was a problem with charging for evening parking. So now there would be a gate that would go up, and you would get a time-stamped plastic card. So the gate is new relative to the original proposal, and what the gate also does, it's a physical visual barrier for people. It counts cars. There would be a button like at Westchester Mall, right? You press the button and a ticket comes out. There can be a barcode reader installed that would really be more of a fast track system. So if you have staff members, restaurant, delivery folks, they can just put their credential in. The gate would open. They would not need to, pay or reconcile anything else. And there are anti-fraud issues where, you'd have to exit with your card before you can re-enter. There's different things that CORE can do so that people don't, abuse that. They recommended the spikes, like in the rental car, so that on the way out, you don't have someone just pressing the button and people going out through the in lane. So you'd get your plastic card, and it's time-stamped. You would either go to the kiosk to pay, and at the kiosk, you would again present your credential. It could be your permit, it could be your driver's license to show that you are a Rye resident if you have no permit. And then you would enter money into the kiosk, however we determine if it's cash and credit or just credit. Your card comes back out and it's paid.
It's the same card.
Same card. And then as you're leaving, you put the card in and it opens the gate. Now, if you haven't paid at the kiosk, you can pay at the gate, but it would only take a credit card. So one option could be you could have 2 exit lanes, and one would be for people that feel pretty comfortable that they can just go without a problem. And the other could be, sort of a slower lane. They really don't feel you need to have any staff, in that parking booth. I mean, we would recommend you actually just take out the booth so there's no going backward. And in the first season, you can reallocate some of the staff to be sort of ambassadors at will, right? And they're walking around. They might be at the kiosk. They might be at the exit gate just to help people. And there are intercoms. But they felt there are many places where totally unstaffed, parking gates were being accepted by consumers. So that's the basic configuration.
Christina, I'm familiar a little bit with the Westchester. What is the difference? Sounds exactly like the Westchester. It's differential parking. You get the card, it's time-stamped. On the way out, you use that card. Are there any really differences? And I think it's a very efficient system once you get used to it. Are there any differences? I'm not sure if the Westchester, if you can use a credit card.
Yeah, you can use a credit card.
On the way out?
Yeah.
I believe so.
I don't know. I've always,
Well, I think it's the fact that that there's a barcode reader that's associated with
Right.
it, so that you can get a differentiated rate,
which I think is,
which they don't do at the mall. But otherwise, it's a very similar system.
Actually, they do at the mall, I believe.
Oh, they do?
No,
I don't know.
for number of hours of parking.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, that's right.
I'm sorry.
Great, thank you.
Well, go, sorry.
I have to answer what you say.
No, hold on, we'll give you a chance.
Okay.
Oh, and I would also say that if you're already putting up the fixed expense of this system, what they would also offer for the beach admission is that you could go to the kiosk and you could buy your beach admission at the same time. You get a receipt and you would turn it in for a bracelet or something at the gate. And so potentially you could have, let's say there are 3 booths that are staffed with 2 people each, perhaps you could cut that in half. I don't think you'd want to have nobody, in the beach gates. And the core system, I think she mentioned this last month, you could also do, internet sales, and you